welcome to yet another edition of the Stats and Stacks podcast, where today we're going over UFC 302, Makhachev versus Poirier. First things first, make sure you smash the like button, hit that subscribe, give a follow over on Twitter, over on Instagram, over on TikTok, wherever there's social media. There's a Stats and Stacks podcast. Last week, we're coming off a week where we had 0 losses. And we had 0 wins because it was fucking break week, and it was torturous when we get week and week and weeks of UFC fights and then nothing. You go mentally insane. I kept betting the NBA playoffs and losing all the money I've made over the last few events. So I am so grateful to have UFC back. However, in that week off, people do research and these lines get steamed. A lot of flipped lines, a lot of egregious lines, just a lot of stuff going on here. So you really have to pick the right stuff here. But at the end of the day, that's what stats are for. That's what just fight tape is for, and that's what I'm for. So let's go ahead and jump into this pay-per-view offering. It's not the greatest pay-per-view on paper, but again, and we say it every time, as long as we're making money, it's going to be one hell of a time. So let's jump to the very first fight of the night. We have Andre Lima minus 245 going up against Mitch Raposo on short notice at plus 200. Over under at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 160. Under 2.5 at plus 125. If you're saying Andre Lima looks a little familiar, it's because he's the one that got his arm bitten in his last fight. But outside of causing people to bite you, he's a pretty decent fighter. He's a little newer. He's 25 years old, so he's pretty green in some instances, and you can see it from time to time. But he's predominantly a striker, a very, very good striker at that. And he has a good jujitsu background as well. I want to say he's a brown belt. It's purple or brown, but he's very, very confident in his ground game, and it looks pretty solid. Has a few submission wins on his record. Also has a few knockouts because again, he's predominantly a striker. His wrestling, his takedown defense looked pretty good in Contender Series. The regional scene was pretty hit or miss. Then it looked very good in Contender Series, so I thought he had tuned that up. But in his very first fight in the UFC, it did not look good at all, getting taken down multiple times. I don't know if he was just having the UFC jitters. I was kind of getting those vibes. You see it time and time again. These young kids come in as favorites, and then they get an adrenaline dump. They never look great the first time. We saw it with Daniel Zellhuber losing to Trey Ogden, or not Trey Ogden, Daniel Zellhuber. Was it Trey Ogden he lost to? I think so. It was Ignacio Bahamondes lost to John McDessie. Like we see it time and time again. When these kids come in at like under 25 years old, they just kind of struggle in their very first fight. So there's going to be a second fight, and luckily he got bailed out with that bite. It was a pretty close fight, his first fight. But again, his takedown defense reared its ugly head again. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage in this matchup, and his cardio usually checks out. He was gassing out in the last one, but I think that was an adrenaline dump. At the end of the day, he's a very good striker with a very good ground game. Pretty active guard when he is down there on his back. But at the end of the day, it's his takedown defense is going to make or break, especially because of who he's fighting. Initially, I was all over him when he was fighting. I don't even want to pronounce the guy's name, the other guy from Contender Series. But then that guy fell out, and now we have a change of opponent, and we have Mitch Raposo, who is a little bit of a generalist, but the best aspect of his game is his wrestling. We've seen him use it time and time again. If he looks familiar, he was in a season of The Ultimate Fighter. He was the #1 seed. But then he got bounced out by Loic Chauvillian. Then he had a fight on Contender Series, and he ultimately lost that to Jake Hadley. This kid is also 25 years old, so when we're seeing this kid, we're seeing him very, very young. Again, he's taking this fight on short notice, but he's at a good fight camp. He's with the New England Cartel over with Rob Font, training with Calvin Cater and those guys over there on a daily basis is good. He's a little lower volume when he's on the feet, but his striking's okay. You do see constant improvement. And again, he's 25 years old. You're going to see him look better each and every time. He has really good wrestling. His jujitsu's okay. It's serviceable. His cardio's okay. I've seen him slow down in that Contender Series fight, but he took that on short notice against Jake Hadley. That is a little bit concerning because this fight is on short notice. So this is one where he probably does need to take a wrestle heavy game plan. Um, I don't know, man. It's going to be very, very interesting here. He's very quick and he's very small. That's the problem I have with him. He typically shows good fight IQ. He strikes with people that grapple. He grapples with people that like to strike. Like he's with him being a generalist, he's able to implement whatever game plan he wants, and he usually chooses right. Like he's a good fighter, and his only losses again, Jake Hadley's not a terrible fighter, and that was essentially a UFC fight. His other loss didn't count towards his record, but again, it was to another UFC fighter, so he's only lost twice. Only one of them counted, and they're both to UFC level competition. So the kid's really good. It's just I think he's small. He's very very small, and he's very young, and making a lot of adjustments and improving along the way. So you have a young, small guy on short notice that's 25 going against a striker who has struggled with his takedown defense as of late, who's also 25. This is a sketchy fight. I think it's a lot closer than the line indicates. So, in all honesty, it's going to be one of those where I pick Andre. I think he could catch Mitch. I think he could catch him on the feet. I think he could sub Mitch. Again, he's a very active guard down there. But I could also see Mitch winning by decision. I don't think he finishes Andre in any shape or form. So the way I would probably attack this fight is just the over 2.5 at minus 160. I could definitely see that hitting. But if you want to feel frisky, if you want to feel froggy and leap, I understand the Mitch Raposo bet. In regards to a pick, it's Andre, but a bet, it's dog or pass with Mitch at plus 200, or I'm taking that over 2.5 at minus 160. Those are the only two ways I'm putting money on here. Next fight of the night is more sketchiness. We have Jocelyn Edwards at plus 165 going up against Eileen Perez at minus 200. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 330. Under 2.5 at plus 240. This is the rematch that no one knows about because Jocelyn Edwards and Eileen Perez did get into a fight at the UFC PI, and I think if you remember Eileen's last fight, she came in with a little bit of a shiner under her eye against Pudilova. That's because Jocelyn Edwards gave it to her, and then ultimately got choked out by Eileen's coach. So that was something to behold. Edwards is not good. She is 28, so she is constantly improving. She did do herself a service and start training at Extreme Couture, and I have seen improvements since she's been at that gym. So she is young, she is getting better, and she is surrounding herself with good coaches and good talent. She will have a 4-inch reach advantage with this in this matchup, which is nice. She has pretty decent striking, throws a pretty good volume. Her jiu-jitsu is improving, but it's not good by any means. Her takedown defense is improving. It was at 30% at one point. It's now showing 64%. Still not good. Still well below average. So she does struggle with the grappling as a whole. She's predominantly a striker. She is training that grappling. And again, Extreme Couture is littered with people with good takedown defense. Chris Curtis, Sean Strickland come to mind right away. Even Punahali Seriano's not the worst takedown defense. Like they typically have good takedown defense at Extreme Couture. So she's at a good spot. But 64% still is not good. She is someone also that perpetually struggles with weigh-ins. We've seen her fight at 145, 135, 125. She's all over the place in regards to her weight class. So do watch her at weigh-ins. Um, and she has a lot of split decisions. She's someone that fights the caliber of her opponent. We've seen her get split decisions. We've seen her lose to Nora Coronoli, and I thought she won that fight. I had money on Nora, and I thought Jocelyn won and she got robbed. But I also had money on her against Lucy Podolova, and they gave her the win, and I thought Pudilova got robbed. I had money on Ji Young Kim against Edwards and another split decision. I thought Ji Young Kim got robbed. So yeah, it goes back and forth. She's always in these really close, pretentious fights, unless you're a grappler. She goes up. Well, that's not true. Sarah Alpar won a split. She's a grappler. But at the end of the day, Carol Hosa was able to take her down and destroy her. Jessica Rose Clark was able to take her down and destroy her. And in here we have Eileen Perez, who is Predominantly a grappler. She nicknamed herself Nurmagomedov as of late. Let's go ahead and jump over to her side. She's 29 years old. You got to be careful if you want to believe in the OnlyFans fade because she does have an OnlyFans, unfortunately. She is okay striking. She's very strong. She's a very physically strong girl. But in regards to her striking, it's not very technical. It's just a lot of just overpowering. Her jujitsu's okay. She gets pretty sloppy down there, but her and Jocelyn are pretty much a wash down there. But her grappling, man, we saw her get 10 takedowns against Ashley Evans Smith. We saw her go down and just absolutely dominate Lucia Pudilova on the ground for the first 2 rounds. And the reason I emphasize the first 2 rounds is because she did gas out in the third round. So you do have to watch her gas tank. She does have a tendency to slow down in every single one of her fights. Um, but I don't know, she at the end of the day actually struck with Jocelyn Edwards and it did not go well. So hopefully that PI fight and that PI experience made her realize I do have to go out there and wrestle. Because if she does, she can out grapple Jocelyn Edwards. Jocelyn's someone that gets stuck on her back. She doesn't have a lot of urgency to get up. I've even seen a lot of instances where she got taken down, she kicked the girl off, and she's just kind of goading her to come back down there and try to up kick her. Why she wouldn't just stand up, I have no fucking clue. But Eileen will definitely oblige and go right back down there. But the thing is, Eileen is a person that does position over submission. She's not one that's going to go out there and ground and pound the hell out of you. I mean, even her last fight, she was just humping Lucy Bodilova. Yeah, that OnlyFans stuff runs deep in her. But at the end of the day, she doesn't have good grappling. So she's probably not going to sub her. Her ground and pound needs a lot of work, but she can hold you down there and she can stay busy enough to keep the position. So it's Perez all day. However, it's women's MMA and funkiness happens, and Jocelyn Edwards won't stop winning these split decisions or going to very weird decisions as a whole. I thought this with Emily Ducati versus Vanessa Demopoulos. I kept saying, you know what? Whoever Vanessa's probably going to lose the fight. She's probably going to not land as much. She might even get taken down. But at the end of the day, the judges are going to reward her. And you know what? Jocelyn keeps getting rewarded. And I think this is going to be another close fight. This is another one I'm predicting that goes to a split. And in this instance, I'm just going to ride with who usually gets it. And judges love damage the most right now. Jocelyn's going to give the most damage, and it's going to be freshest. She's going to be the fresher fighter in round three. That's going to weigh heavy in the judges' minds. So I do like Eileen to win the fight, but I cannot trust a gasser who doesn't dish out a lot of damage. I'm going to have to take Edwards at plus money in this matchup. So the pick is Eileen. I trust the wrestling, but I will not have money on her. If anything, I will have the over and a lot of parlays because that over is most likely going to hit, but it's juiced. So if you want to take the shot on Jocelyn Edwards at plus 165, it is not a bad bet. Next fight of the night is another one that could get really, really weird here. We have Mickey Gall at plus 280 going up against Basil Hafez at minus 355. Over under set at 1.5. Over 1.5 minus 195. Under 1.5 at plus 150. Let's start with Basil Hafez, mainly because he is the prime example of stuff I like to fade. Someone that came in on short notice, looked really good in their debut, ultimately lost a really close fight, and then everyone piles in on them in their next fight. They did not expect them. They're a huge underdog. They came in and they looked phenomenal, and now people think they're very, very, very good and overpriced them every single time. And here we go with Basil being a minus 355 favorite and growing. Like I understand it. His striking's a work in progress. It's okay, it's serviceable, but he is a very good wrestler and he's a very good jiu-jitsu practitioner. His cardio, it's hit or miss. He did gas out in the Jack Della Maddalena fight, but he did take the fight on very short notice. So I'll cut him some slack in regards to his cardio there. He's someone that always pushes forward, never takes a backward step. And they actually, he's another one that's very good at striking with grapplers and grappling with strikers. He knows he always has a good fight IQ, good game plan. He's coming from CFFC on the regional scene, which is like one of my favorite places to come from. He also fought at Fury FC. He fought Evan Cutts, who's actually a pretty decent fighter, and got a knockout win there. He fought Jeremiah Wells, who's a pretty decent fighter. Went to a draw with him. Yeah, he's fought good guys on the regional scene. He's a very good grappler. He has everything I like. And to make it even sweeter, he already beat Mickey Gall, but he beat Mickey Gall in a grappling competition. And that's the thing. That's the thing that really sticks out because Basil is a grappler that has some power on the feet and can, he can clean your clock if he needs to. Mickey Gall is also a grappler who is not a very good striker and can be a little low key chinny at times. So that does not bode well for Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall has to grapple to get wins, and he is solely grappled with Basil and already lost. He was already taken down. He was already controlled. So that's not a good look for Mickey. How does Mickey win this fight if he's forced to stand when he can't strike and has a suspect chin? Well, I'll tell you part of it. He has a 2-inch reach advantage, which I do like. I think he'll be able to be safe if Basil does take him down. I think he'll be able to stay safe on the ground because he is pretty good on the ground. He's pretty low volume on the feet. And he does have 36% takedown defense, so he most likely will be getting taken down to the ground. However, with his chin, yes, he's been knocked out, and he is considered chinny, but he's one of these guys that wake up really fast. Like the Mike Malott knockout, he was out cold and popped right back up and knew exactly where he was. It's not that he like gets cold cocked every single fight. The Diego Sanchez fight was a ground and pound, so he wasn't even out cold. He just essentially gets stunned a lot. You can crack him and he'll wobble, but then he comes to really, really fast. He has really fast recoverability. That's just something I noticed along the way. So you have to put him out and make it look definitive. In addition, and I think the thing that's going to make this the sketchiest, he's going to be the lankier fighter. So hopefully he can just pop that jab out there, and he's going to have the crowd behind him. There's not any guys from New Jersey on this card besides Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall is going to be the only one that is actually from New Jersey in New Jersey. Randy Brown is from New York. He's very close by. Like there are some people that will have, that New York route. But Mickey Gall is the only one born and bred in Jersey in a fight card in Jersey. So I'm pretty sure the judges can be influenced by the crowd. It's just Basil can go out there and dominate. You could definitely knock him out. You could definitely take him down, control, and just stay on top. I could definitely see that happening. But I don't know, man. I love fading these guys that looked really good in a loss and then are huge favorites coming back. It's a thing I do. It's something that's very effective. I don't like Mickey Gall. I don't think he's a good fighter. Part of me wants to bet him. I truly do, but I don't think he finishes Basil. So I think the right thing to do is to just take the over. I don't have the balls to take Gall here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick Basil and I'm going to take the over 1.5 at -195. I might even take the 2.5, honestly, if they give me good enough odds. I think this might go the distance. But to stay safe, you want to stay really safe. The pick is going to be Basil. The bet is going to be the over 1.5 at -195. I'm talking myself out of goal. All right, next fight of the night. We have Nico Price at +195 going up against Alex Morono at -240. Over under also set at 1.5. Over 1.5 is -190. Under 1.5 at +145. And this is also a rematch. Let's start with Alex Morono. Alex Morono is a good striker. He's a world class jiu-jitsu practitioner, but you wouldn't know that and you never see it because the dude can't wrestle to save his life. He is a god awful wrestler. He does back up in his fights, but he kind of likes that. He likes counter striking a ton. Again, 55% takedown defense. He took down Reese McKee. He accidentally took down Anthony Pettis one time, and I think those were all his takedowns in the UFC. He trains out of Fortis MMA, which is a really good camp. He does everything well. Problem with him is that he does have a tendency to slow down his fights. His gas tank's a little sketchy, and his chin is very sketchy. We've seen this dude chin checked multiple times. Santiago Ponzinibbio knockout. We saw Joaquin Buckley dropped him. Anthony Pettis rocked him badly with an axe kick. Chaos Williams knocked him out in 30 seconds. Like we continually see this guy knocked out. And here's one other. He got knocked out against Nico Price. Now, Nico Price popped afterwards, but yes, this is a rematch. And the crazy thing is, in that first fight, Alex Morono beat the absolute shit out of Nico Price, dropped him multiple times in the first round, had him on skates. They almost stopped the fight, came out in the second round and got caught and got put out. And that's where we first realized his chin's a little sketchy. I mean, he was knocked out on the regional scene before. We just kind of knocked that as a fluke. Then we saw it in the Nico Price fight, and then we saw it in the Chaos Williams fight, and now he's just perpetually getting chin checked. Like he has a chin problem, and he's already been chinned by this fighter. But he's still the favorite. Why? Because he beat the absolute dog shit out of Nico Price the entire first round. People are thinking he just got caught. Can Nico Price do it again? I don't know. He keeps getting these stupid knockouts. He's not that hard of a hitter. I don't know if he just has like that Connor precision thing going on, or what I think is just he's kind of lucky. He's not that hard of a hitter. Like his striking's okay. It's not great. It's okay. He has a 4-inch reach advantage, which is going to be nice here. But he himself has been a little chinny as of late at his older age. He slows down in his fights. He doesn't have the greatest cardio. Jiu-jitsu definitely goes to Alex. Nico's also very hittable on the feet. He gets hit like twice as much as he dishes out. In his wrestling, he's been using it as of late. We saw him take down Phil Rowe. We saw him go to grappling competitions here, but he's getting killed. Like his jiu-jitsu is not good. He's working on it, but he's not very good. And when he does try to wrestle, it gasses him out. It messes with his gas take, and he himself has 64% takedown defense. He can't stuff a takedown. So we're really looking at a striking fight. And we've already seen the striking fight. And Alex Morono beat the absolute shit out of Nico Price until he got caught. Will he catch him again? He could. Morono's chin has not gotten any better. However, Nico Price's chin, who got rocked twice in that matchup, has gotten worse. With age, Nico Price, I can see the decline. Morono's not getting any better than he was there, but he hasn't really gotten any worse. Nico Price is getting worse. His cardio is going down, his chin is going down, and I think Nico Price is going down in this fight. So I think Alex is going to make things right. The pick is going to be Alex Morono. The bet's going to be Alex Morono. Then that takes us to the next fight of the night, and another one I'm just very confused to do how to handle this. We have Philip Rowe at plus 135 going up against Jake Matthews at minus 160. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 at minus 150. Under 2.5 at plus 120. Let's start with Philip Rowe, the Fresh Prince. I don't like Philip Rowe. I don't think he's very good. I do think he's very tall and lanky, and it definitely shows here. 8-inch reach advantage. That is massive. 33 years old, so this is the finished product here. He has okay striking, okay power. I mean, he's got big ass hands. He's all right on the feet. Jiu-jitsu is really his bread and butter. He's a very good jiu-jitsu practitioner. His wrestling is not good. Offensively, doesn't use it. Defensively, rocking a 60% takedown defense. My biggest problem with Philip Rowe is in the UFC, he has quite a few wins, but they're against some sketchy competition. Nico Price, as we just talked about, and Nico was beating the hell out of Philip Rowe before he gassed out, and then Philip Rowe caught him. And he also missed weight that fight, so let's not forget that. He knocked out Jason Witt, who is by far the second chiniest fighter in UFC history. Shannon Ross will always hold number one, and Jason Witt's number two. So he knocked out a chinny fighter, and Jason Witt is no longer with the promotion. Orion Koski, who is a gasser of all gassers, has never been able to fight outside of round one, never won a fight that went out of round one, and is ultimately cut from the promotion. And that is it. He won on Contender Series against Leon Shabazian, who is god awful, never made it to the UFC. So he has 0 good wins on his record. I'm really looking at it. His best win is Nico Price, who we just shit on for 5 minutes just a little bit ago. So he has no good wins. Now, I will give him his losses. Gabe Green's okay. Neil Magny, he's older now, but he's okay. So he doesn't really have any bad losses on his record, but no good wins. So where do you rate Jake Matthews? I don't know. Phillips also very hittable when he's on the feet. For someone that's very long and lanky, he doesn't fight long well. He's getting better at it. I will give him that. I do see progression in regards to his distance striking, but it's still not where it should be for the distance he has. 8 inches he's going to have in this matchup. As long as he uses it, that's really going to benefit him, and it could help a ton. He's also close to the area. I think he trains in New York, or no, he trains in. Sorry, he trains in Florida, but he's originally from Brooklyn. So he'll probably have the crowd in his on his side, which is going to be good for him because it's probably going to be a close fight. And lastly, he's not great going backwards. Now, this is why I think he's live against Jake Matthews. First and foremost, Jake Matthews is a counter striker. That doesn't usually mean you're going forward. So pushing him backwards probably isn't going to be a thing. If Jake Matthews wins this fight, it's going to be with his wrestling. Jake Matthews is a decent wrestler. Yeah, he lost fights to Sean Brady. Yeah, he lost fights to Michael Morales. Those are like world class wrestlers. He's not going to out wrestle those guys. Can he out wrestle Philip Rowe? Yes. Can he outstrike Philip Rowe? It's pretty 50-50. But yeah, I think he's the cleaner striker. It's just Philip Rowe. Jake doesn't do well with jabs and people that fight long. Philip Rowe is getting better at it, but isn't the greatest at fighting long. So I think the striking is a wash. I think the wrestling clearly goes to Jake. And I think the jiu-jitsu is a wash because Jake himself is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. The best part of his game is his ground game. So they can both strike, they can both grapple. But Jake is going to be the one that's getting the offensive takedowns. His cardio's okay. I've seen him slow down in fights. I've also seen him look just fine in 3 rounders. Never really know. My problem with Jake is that he has a little bit of a newsman. He doesn't go out, but he gets cracked all the time. We saw him get wobbled against Michael Morales. We saw him get wobbled against Matthew Summelsberger 3 times. That one did not age well. He gets rocked all the fucking time. So that's not a good look here. You can sub him when he gets tired. Anthony Rocco Martin, 3rd round, was able to catch him. We saw Kevin Lee ground and pound him. Why? Because Kevin Lee was a better grappler and just took him out. Sean Brady subbed him round 3. Why? Because he was a better grappler and took him out at the end. He does fade in round 3 if he's not able to get these takedowns. He does. But I think he's going to be able to get the takedowns against 60% takedown defense Philip Rowe. My problem is his game plan. He is pretty poor fight IQ. Jake Matthews is 29 years old, and we've seen him since he was like 18 in the UFC, and he's always been an apple pie shitter. No matter what, he goes in, he's usually a big favorite, and he will occasionally let you down. Every other fight, he looks good. He looks bad. He looks good. He looks bad. And you don't really know what. There's 2 versions of Jake Matthews. There's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I'm telling you right now, if good version shows up, he's going to take down Philip Rowe, stay safe, and absolutely dominate Philip Rowe for 15 minutes. If bad Jake Matthews comes out, he might get chin checked. So I don't know. I don't want to trust Jake Matthews, but I'm always going to go grappler over striker. It's not really what we have here. We have grappler versus grappler, but Jake Matthews just he finds ways to lose. I don't feel comfortable. I'm gonna pick him, and I'm gonna ultimately bet the over. I'm probably gonna be soft and bet the over 1.5, and just parlay it. It's gonna be a little juice because the 2.5 is minus 150. So I'm probably gonna take the alt line at over 1.5, throw it in a bunch of parlays, and be done with this fight because I do not want to pick a side. No idea what's gonna happen here. Next fight of the night is one that should be very, very close, but in my mind, Vegas got right. Grant Dawson minus 410 going up against Joe Selecki at plus 320. Over under at 2.5, over 2.5 minus 210, under 2.5 at plus 180. Let's start with Grant Dawson. He took 10 months off after getting knocked out by Bobby Green. I like that. Let your chin and your brain heal. I like that he is 1 inch and 1.5 inch reach advantage against Joe Selecki. I like that. I like that he is a good wrestler who was able to take down Olympians like Mark Madsen. He was able to take down Demiris Magulov. He was able to take down Leonardo Santos multiple times, Derek Minner. Like these are all pretty good wrestlers, and he's able to go in there and take them down and dominate. I love his jujitsu. He has a very, very, very good jujitsu game, and he's a hammer on top. He's very hard to get off you. He's one of these Aljos where if he takes your back, it's game over. Round is over. Like he will not lose it. He slaps on that body triangle, and you can't get out. There's no escape. Period. You literally can't move. Problem with Grant, I've seen him slow. I've seen him slow multiple times. However, his cardio has looked better. The James Krause ordeal made him switch. Actually, he switched right before James Krause got in trouble. He was in Glory MMA for a while. He was their pride and joy, and he decided he needed to get better and that he needed to leave. And he went to ATT, which is a great, great gym. And his cardio's looked much better since he's been at ATT, I will say. He's pretty low volume on the feet. He's not a great striker. He's showing a 40% takedown defense, but not a lot of people have tried to take him down, so that number is very skewed. Yeah, he's not the greatest striker in the world. He's really not. And he's pretty chinny. He only has 2 career losses, and they're both by knockout. They're both in the first round. So that's not even like war of attrition. That's just him going out there and getting chin checked. So that doesn't look good. However, he's fighting Joe Selecki, who has zero power and probably worse striking than Grant Dawson. Joe Selecki is a jiu-jitsu practitioner, and that's what he does. If you take him down, he will play guard. He doesn't look great off his back, to be honest with you. He's also 30 years old, so this is pretty much the finished product. His wrestling's okay, but I will say Grant Dawson is the better wrestler. His striking's not great, and I will say Grant Dawson probably has a striking advantage, if not very, very close. Grant Dawson's chin is bad. Joe Selecki's chin is bad. He's been rocked multiple times. He's been knocked out in his last fight. Not good, man. They're basically the same fighter. He slows down in fights, doesn't have the greatest cardio, so I think the cardio's a wash. He's a low volume, just like Grant is. And I said Grant has 40% takedown defense. Joe has 50% takedown defense. Not much better. Grant's going to shoot more takedowns than Joe, and I think Grant's a better wrestler. So if Grant's on top of Joe, Joe's complacent on the ground. He likes to play guard because he is a jiu-jitsu black belt. That's where he feels comfortable. But it's also where Grant feels comfortable, and Joe needs to be on top. So at the end of the day, I think this fight comes down to who's the better wrestler. I'm going to trust the dude that took down Olympic silver medalist, not the dude that took down Carl Deaton. So the pick is going to be Grant Dawson. The bet's going to be Grant Dawson. Not a lot going into that. Minus 410 for a reason, but it'll be a no sweat bet. All right. Next fight of the night. We have something that was unfortunate. We have Cesar Almeida at minus 115 now. The line officially flipped. I think it was minus 120 the last time I checked. Roman Kopylov minus 105. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 105. Under 2.5 minus 125. Yeah, man, this line flipped because you're going to hear it over and over at nauseum. Cesar Almeida has a win over Alex Pereira in kickboxing. Don't get me wrong. He's 1-2 against the now light heavyweight champion. He lost to Alex Pereira twice. However, he did go to decision both times. So he's very durable. And obviously, if you beat Alex Pereira in kickboxing, you are world class. Like this dude is one of the best strikers in middleweight right now. Very, very, very good striking. And he's getting fast tracked, just like Alex Pereira did, because he's older, man. He's 36 years old. He spent a lifetime doing kickboxing, realized he could make more money in MMA. And unlike our buddy Robles de Spain, has worked on his ground game, has worked on his wrestling. I've seen him taken down in fights, and I've seen him get back up. I've seen him hit sweeps. I've seen him stuff a takedown. He does all the right things. He doesn't just lay down not knowing what to do. He knows what to do. I've even seen him go for a submission one time. This dude, just like Alex Pereira, is actually a student of the game, and I do respect that. Um, we have what is it? Carl Williams fighting Jonado Denise coming up. Denise, unlike Caesar, does not do his ground game. It looked terrible. His wrestling looked absolutely terrible. So I can't wait to fade him against Carl Williams. Caesar, I'm not fading against wrestlers. He just fought Dylan Butka. Dylan Butka is nothing but a college wrestler, and and he did get taken down. He took down Cesar Almeida multiple times, but Caesar got back up. And that's so encouraging. So not only is he one of the best strikers in the entire division, if you take him down, it is hell on wheels to keep him down there. He will get back up by any means necessary, and he works hard. And he continually does it, showing good cardio. This cardio checks out, man. He looks very green down there, but you can tell he's working. And you can tell he's just an overall good fighter. Someone I'm going to continue to back. I bet him against Bucka as a dog. He won me money. I bet him in Contender Series as a dog. He won me money. And the thing that makes me sad about this fight is that he was a dog. I bet him at plus 120 2 weeks ago. He is now the favorite. The line flipped because everyone's seeing what I'm seeing. He's fighting a fellow striker. I like Roman Kopylov. I've won money with Roman Kopylov, but he is predominantly a striker. He himself has a ton of power, but he will slow down in his fights from time to time. He is Russian and decided, hey, I got taken down and choked out by Carl Robertson. That's never going to happen again. And credit to him, packed his bags, went to Dagestan of all places, and went to the mountains and trained his takedown defense, and has looked like an absolute killer ever since. It's very hard to take him down now. Carl Robertson was able to take him down and submit him, but Albert Duraev wasn't able to submit him. We had Alicia Di Chirico couldn't take him down. Just Josh Fremd couldn't take him down. Like a lot of people struggled. Now, don't get me wrong. He ran into Fluffy and got fluffied. That happens. Fluffy's going to do that to most people in the weight class. So it is what it is. No detriment to Roman there. That was the absolute worst stylistic matchup. Someone with an infinite gas tank and good wrestling. Like that's not good. But Roman is just pressing me, man. He's doing a lot of good things, but he's a striker, and he's going to have to strike with a world class kickboxer. He's not the better striker here. So is he going to resort to his wrestling? Some people think that. Some people think, well, he is Russian. He's been training his wrestling. He's now going to offensively wrestle. Well, guess what? Caesar can stuff takedowns. And if you do take Caesar down, he's very good at getting up. Is Roman's jujitsu good enough to keep Caesar down? Even if Roman has worked his wrestling and he's able to get Caesar down, he's not going to keep him down. Caesar will get up. Like he knows every single person is working to take him down. He's going to get up. Is Roman going to keep taking him down? Because Roman is someone that is known for having a bad gas tank. If he has a bad gas tank, and he's going to have to implement a wrestling heavy style as a striker. We've seen this time and time and time again. You cannot be a striker who starts to lean on their wrestling without getting tired. It's physically impossible. Roman will gas out, Caesar will get up, and Caesar will ultimately get the job done. The best way for Roman to win this is by knockout or decision. He's going to have to stand to get this win, in my opinion. And I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think he can take him down. I think this is a very bad style matchup. So I'm all in on Caesar. The pick is Caesar. The bet is Caesar. I loved him as a dog. He is the favorite dog I've seen in a very long time. And apparently I'm not the only one because he's now the favorite, but I would still bet him at minus 120. That's a good line. Pick a Caesar Almeida, bet Caesar Almeida. Next fight of the night. We'll rock with the dog with this one, man. I've gone back and forth, but I'm on the dog. We have Randy Brown at minus 180 going up against Elizu Zaleski at plus 150. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 160. Under 2.5 at plus 125. Let's start with Randy Brown. He's someone that's getting better, especially since he started training over at Caesar Gracie Philly, or sorry, Henzo Gracie Philly with Petrosky and with Sean Brady and Nerzulton and those boys, Joe Pfeiffer. He's looked very good over there. He's a very good striker. Not a ton of power. I know he just knocked out Muslim Solikov, but generally not a ton of power. Good jab, knows how to fight long. Good ground game. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, again, training over with the Gracie boys over in Philly. So his ground game is nothing to be slept on. 74% takedown defense. So although he doesn't offensively wrestle well, his defense is okay, especially training there. He is from, or not from, he at one point fought out of New York. So I don't know if he's going to have the crowd behind them. There's a chance he may. If he's going to be, if the crowd's going to be behind anyone in this matchup, it's going to be Randy Brown, and he's American fighting a Brazilian in America, so you're going to hear a USA chant. Crowd will behind Randy Brown. I have a 5-inch reach advantage, which is super nice. I like everything about Randy Brown. I think he's a good fighter. Outside of his cardio checks out as well. Two bad things with Randy Brown. He keeps his hands very low. He gets very cocky in there and starts talking like Nick Diaz, Kevin Holland style. He is a talker, and his hands are extremely low. Kind of Bobby Brown. He's kind of welterweight Bobby Brown, hands low, talking shit, and he's chinny. That's not good. That is not a good combo. Low hands and bad chin, not good. Jack Della knocked him out. We saw Vicente Luque knock him out. We saw Nico Price knock him out. Like the dude gets knocked out all the fucking time. That's not good, especially where someone that keeps their hands low. And when you look at this little run that he's been on, let's be real. He's on an old man tour, which is kind of awkward. Brian Barberina's pretty old. Took him out past his prime. Warley Alves is kind of old. Took him out past his prime. Alex Oliveira is kind of old. Took him out past his prime. Jared Gooden, he fought that he's not old. Chaos Williams, not old. So those are fine. And that was a split decision against Chaos. That was very sketchy. I thought Randy won, but that was too close for comfort. Francisco Trinaldo, very old, and was able to get the win. Wellington Turman is not good, and I think fights, yeah, he's just not good. And then Muslim Solikov, very old. So he's fought out of his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out of his last 8 fights, he's fought 4 people out of their prime. So the run is kind of weird. It's a little skewed. Again, I'll take nothing against Chaos. Jared Gooden's just not very good. Wellington Turman's just not very good. So he fought 2 guys that aren't great. He only has 2 good wins in his last 8 wins, is the way I'm putting it. Not an impressive run in my eyes. Now he is fighting another old man in Eliza Selesky. He's continuing his old man tour. Selesky's 37 years old. But Selesky is very good striking. You're probably going to hear them talking about it ad nauseum that he knocked out Sean Strickland with a spinning wheel kick. That is true at welterweight. Um, good level of competition. Very good jujitsu. I don't know who has a jujitsu edge here. It might be Santos, to be honest with you. He's very good on the ground. His takedown defense is good, 70% takedown defense, and Randy's not a good wrestler to begin with. Has a ton of power. Also has a ton of split decisions. So those are a little sketchy as of late. It's like he was knocking everyone out. He popped for PEDs, and then he started going to split decisions and draws all over the place. So he lost some of the power without the steroids, but he's still in these close fights, and he's still good. I don't know, man. You do see a little decline. He's physically slower, he really is, but his cardio still checks out even at 37 years old. His power is still there to an extent. His striking is still there, even though he's physically slower. He still has very good timing. His takedown defense is very good, and his jiu-jitsu is very good. So jiu-jitsu is a wash. Neither one of them are going to wrestle, so this makes it a striking affair against someone who is 37 years old and is a little slow. And Randy Brown should be able to jab to death, or Zaleski can catch the chinny fighter, and he's someone that has knocked out multiple people, someone that literally almost ended the career of Benoit Saint Denis in their fight. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Does Randy Brown continue his old man tour, or does Randy Brown get chin checked like he seemingly does every other fight? I think Vegas got it right. I think Randy should be the favorite, but not those odds. If anything, I'm betting Zaleski probably by KO. I don't think he can win a decision. I think he has to get the knockout. So the pick is going to be Randy Brown. The bet probably going to be Zaleski by KO. Or I'll just take Zaleski. Plus 150 is enough. Let's not get greedy. The pick is going to be Randy Brown. The bet is going to be the underdog Zaleski. I'm sorry I'm doing it so much, but these lines have been off on this card. Everything's getting steamed with the 2 week break. So it's just tough, man. And this is, I'm going to do the exact same thing here. We have Jailton Almeida at minus 270 going up against Alexander Romanov at plus 220. Over under set at 1.5. Over 1.5 plus 100. Under 1.5 at minus 130. Romanov's my boy, man. Let's start with Romanov. I love Romanov. I pegged Romanov as a future champion when he came into the UFC. Let me tell you why. Because the Romanov that came into the UFC was only in his mid 20s, world class wrestling, very, very good wrestler, has a sumo background, which I thought was unusual, but is very good, just dexterity and weight distribution. Like he's just a very good wrestler, very good with his throws. He will throw you everywhere. After he wins, he starts tossing his coaches around. Very, very, very good wrestler. Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt. Now that's the reason I was on Romanov. If you're in light heavyweight, if you're in heavyweight, or if you're in women's MMA, if you can wrestle, you are automatically a top 10 because literally only like 5 people in those weight classes can wrestle. Romanov and heavyweight can wrestle. So can Jailton, which is interesting. Curtis Blades can wrestle. Tom Aspinall can wrestle. And John Jones can wrestle. I guess Stipe, if you're counting him at 43. But like literally, if you can wrestle, you're a top 5 guy. Like that's just the way it works. Sergey Spivak is winning fights and ranked in the top 10 because he can wrestle a little. If you can wrestle, you are top 10. Romanov could wrestle and is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and showed really good cardio at heavyweight. This guy was the goods. But then something happened. His striking got better. Initially, he had pretty bad striking. His striking actually has improved. He has a sneaky head kick that he loves to throw out there. Has a pretty decent jab, good head movement. But the better his striking got, the worse his cardio got. I don't know what exactly, because I've seen him go hard rounds on the regional scene. He has a decision win. What was the one fight I watched? It was deep into the fight, round 3. It was this fight here, the Sutian fight, where he was halfway through round 3 and he looked good. He wasn't breathing that heavy. Like he looked fine to me. He also had a fight, his second ever fight, went into round 3 and he was able to win pretty easily, pretty handedly, and was able to get a finish in round 3. Both these instances, he got finishes in round 3. I thought his cardio was fine. And then he got all these round 1 finishes, and all of a sudden his gas tank just kind of fell off. I don't know what happened. We really saw it in the Juan Espino fight. His cardio, he fought another wrestler and he was completely cooked. And that's where we saw the first sign of a quitter. He quit in that fight. He got low blowed, said he couldn't continue, and ultimately won a technical split decision. Very sketchy. I don't know if it went the right way, but that was my boy. I had money on him. I was all over it. Then he came in against Jared Vandera and looked in a little better shape, lost a little weight. Then we saw him against Chase Sermon. He shaved his head and had abs. He lost 25 pounds, shaved his head, and looked phenomenal. Thought this guy, world champion. This guy's going to be nasty. Went out there, subbed him in 2 minutes. Looked like an absolute killer. And then he fought Marcin Tybura. Marcin Tybura can wrestle. He gassed out wrestling and ultimately lost a decision. He fought Alexander Volkov. This fight he took on short notice, and Volkov is a top 5 guy, so whatever. It doesn't look good, but he did quit. That's the biggest part that concerned me. Well, he shot a takedown, didn't get it. Volkov spun to the back, and he literally quit. I don't know if it's because he has nothing off of his back, because Juan Espino took him down 4 times, and he got up. Like, he was tired, he was gassed out, but he got up, and that fight went into round 3. Why he gassed out in 2 minutes against Volkov, I think it was the short notice nature of it. I truly do think that's what occurred. But at the end of the day, that was not a good look. And then he fought old man Blagoy, where he showed off his striking. His striking looked better. His cardio, he definitely slowed down, but he didn't gas out. He didn't quit on himself, and he went a whole 3. So that looked good. And then he fought Chris Dawkins in a grappling competition where he got a million takedowns. He did gas out, but it went a pretty long time, and he got a ton of takedowns. So I don't really know what to do with this guy. When I first saw him, and he was a wrestler grappler at heavyweight with good cardio, world champion. Now he has okay striking to go with it, but worse cardio, and that he's gassing. He's not slowing down, he's gassing, and that's very concerning. That whole rambling is pretty much means nothing because he's fighting Jailton Almeida, who has the same fucking problems. Jailton Almeida can wrestle. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So these are the only two. No, I take it back. Them and Tom Aspinall and John Jones are the only 4 men in the entire UFC that are at heavyweight that can wrestle and have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. They're the only ones, and 2 of them are fighting each other. So that's pretty interesting here. Although Almeida generally fights at 205 and decided I'm just going to start fighting at heavyweight and not cutting weight. Um, I don't know. I don't think that was the right decision. I understand how I just said if you can wrestle and you're top 5, or if you can wrestle a heavyweight, you're gonna ultimately be top five. Yeah, that happened. Jailton almost got a fucking title shot because he could wrestle, and he's fighting scrubs. He's fighting Jairzinho Rosenstruck, who can't wrestle. Shamil, who's not the greatest wrestler. Derek Lewis can't wrestle. Like he's fighting all these guys that can't wrestle, taking them down and subbing them because they have no jiu-jitsu and they can't wrestle. But then he ran into Curtis Blades, who can wrestle. And you know what? Jailton took him down. But here's the thing. It says Jailton took him down 9 times in round one. That is ultimate bullshit. He did not. He did not take him down 9 times. He took him down 1 time, and Matt returned him 8 times. Eight he didn't get 8 other takedowns against Jailton. He never lost against Curtis Blades. He never lost control. If as a wrestler growing up, that's not, I don't get takedowns every time I take someone down and they stand back up and I return them to the mat. That's not a fucking takedown. My hands are already locked. Like I didn't have to reestablish. I didn't have to shoot in. I didn't have to grapple. I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was literally kick their leg out or pick them up and sweep their leg. Like that's all you do. It wasn't that difficult. It's not a takedown. So that number is skewed. He took Curtis Blades down once, not 9 times. And in the second round, he gassed out. Why? He had a big 265-pound man that he was trying to throw around, and he gassed himself out. And we realized Jailton has good wrestling. He has good jiu-jitsu, but he has no striking. He has no plan B. He has no cardio, and he got knocked out by Curtis Blades. You know how else he lost in his career? By knockout. Like this dude has been knocked out. He got knocked out in 16 seconds. This dude's chinny, and that's why he fights that way. He doesn't have cardio. We saw it against Derek Lewis. He was flat gassed against Derek Lewis. And he didn't even have to absorb any strikes. He was on top of Derek Lewis the entire fight. It was 23 minutes of this guy on top of Derek Lewis. And he was tired. All he had to do was maintain control. He didn't do anything. He literally just laid on top of him and was tired from laying on top. He has bad cardio. He has a bad chin. Romanov has bad cardio and is a quitter. Which one do you want to bet? Neither. Probably whoever gets a takedown. And I'll be honest with you, Jailton is quick. Jailton might get the first takedown. If the version of Romanov that fought Espino, now careful what I'm saying, and gets up after he gets taken down, Jailton will gas out throwing a 300-pound man because Romanov cuts down to 265. He's going to weigh more than 265 come fight day. Jailton's going to come in at 240 max. That's what he weighs. Like that's what he's going to be on fight day. That's going to be on weigh-in. That is him. He's going to have a 40, 50-pound disadvantage in this matchup. And if he continually takes down Romanov, he's going to gas himself out. Here's the thing. He likes to shoot doubles. If he shoots a double leg on Romanov and fat-ass Romanov sprawls on him, he's in trouble. He could gas out. That's not good. And what happens if Romanov takes down Jailton? Because I've seen Jailton take it down 1 time. He was able to get back up. I'll give the credit to him. But if Romanov tosses Almeida and lands on top of him, that is a huge man mounting you and laying on top of you. Like that's a lot of weight on top of you, and that's also going to gas out Jailton. So at the end of the day, they both have bad gas tanks. I trust Romanov to have 2 rounds in him. If Jailton has to wrestle for a complete 2 rounds against a 300-pound man, I think he's going to gas before the 2 rounds is up. I truly do. Or he could run into quitter Romanov, and at the end of the day, he finishes Romanov and makes it look easy. I don't know which version we're going to get. I think this fight is completely on Romanov, not on Jailton. And I think it's 50-50 between getting gassed out Almeida or quitter Romanov. Those are our 2 options. And you know what? Romanov is plus 220. If it's a coin flip on which version we're getting, why would I not take the plus money? So the pick is going to be Jailton. The bet is going to be, the pick is going to be Alexander Romanov. The bet is going to be Alexander Romanov. I don't feel great about it. But that's the only way to go. I know I'm a little biased. I'm not turning my back on my boy. I wish my boy didn't quit, but let's just hope he doesn't quit on Saturday night. If he doesn't have that quit on Saturday, he's winning this fight. Next fight of the night, we finally have a fight that I'm fairly confident in. We have Kevin Holland at minus 265 taking on Michael Oleksiejczuk at plus 215. Over under set at 1.5. Over 1.5 minus 150. Under 1.5 at plus 120. Let's start with Kevin Holland, the trailblazer, big mouth himself. He's good, man. He's very good. It's important to know this fight is back up at 185. He spent a lot of time down at 170, where he looked good. He just lost some tough fights. He lost to Jack Della in a very close split decision. I mean, Jack Della's a top five guy. He lost to Michael Venom Page in a sheer striking fight. Michael Venom Page is a really good fighter. Um, he lost to Stephen Thompson. Stephen Thompson is probably still the best striker at welterweight. Like he lost to the best strikers at welterweight. Like there's no shame there. And they were close fights. It was close against Stephen Thompson. It was a split against Jack Della, and Michael Page kind of had his way with him, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, Holland is a very, very, very good striker, very good jiu-jitsu practitioner, like sneaky good, like very, very, very good. Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt under Travis Luter. Very good cardio, pretty durable. He has been getting chinned as of late. Michael Page dropped him. Jack Della didn't drop him, but we saw Stephen Thompson dropped him. So do watch his chin. The older he's getting, he's taken all of these fights. Tim Means even cracked him once. So please keep an eye on Holland's chin. It's starting to go, but he is only 31 years old. So it's not time yet to flip the switch there. His wrestling is terrible. We all know this 54% takedown defense. 7-inch reach advantage in this matchup, which is going to be super handy for him. Mainly because Olian Jacek, he looks like a grappler. He's from Poland, but he's a striker. So we don't have to worry about Kevin Holland's takedown defense. This is a thank you Kevin Holland fight, and they're trying to get him back on track. Michael Olian Jacek is best quality as his pressure. He's always in your face. He's always going forward. That's the only way he knows to go. His striking's okay. He packs a pretty decent punch. He has a little bit of power on him, but his jiu-jitsu's god awful. Most of his losses in his career are by submission. Pereira submission, Barrio submission, Jimmy Crute submission, OSP submission. Uh, yeah, man. Most of his fights, even in the regional scene, he has two losses on the regional scene, and one is by submission. So all but two fights were by submission that he lost. In the Jacoby fight, Jacoby was badly hurt coming into that fight. He had something really wrong with his leg, and he still won. He still won a decision, so that says something there. Jiu-jitsu's terrible. Wrestling not good at all. Cardio not good at all. He definitely slows down in every single one of his fights, and he's not very good when he starts to slow down and he backs up. He's not a good counter striker. He pressures forward for a reason. He doesn't know how to go backwards physically. And he's low key chinny. I talk about him having a lot of submissions on his record. Michel Pereira was a clubbing sub. He was rocked bad to the body, and then he got choked out with a rear naked choke. Dustin Jacoby rocked him badly in their fight. We saw whatchamacallit, who else not? He got knocked out previously on the regional scene. Yeah, we've seen this guy chin check quite a bit, so he is a little low key chinny. So we have Holland, who's a jiu-jitsu black belt, who could sub him easily. We also have Holland, has very good cardio, and is a 7-inch reach advantage and some good power. And we have Olian Chaychuk, who's a little chinny, so with a bad gas tank. This is a setup fight. The line is a gift at minus 265. Holland should starch him easily. So the pick is going to be Kevin Holland. The bet's going to be Kevin Holland. Next fight of the night is one where I'm on a completely different marker than all these other podcasts I've listened to this week. We have Sean Strickland at minus 245 going up against Paulo Costa at plus 200. Over on their side at 4.5 because it is a co-main event 5-round fight. Over 4.5 plus 105. Under 4.5 minus 135. This is where the discrepancy is. Everyone's on Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland's the former champion. He's a very good striker. Just like Kevin Holland, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, you just don't see it often. The dude is world class on the ground. 77% takedown defense. He's tough to get down to the ground. We talked about that with Extreme Couture. Has fought a who's who in the middleweight division. Alex Pereira, Israel Adesanya, current champ in DDP. He's a little chinny. That's not good. Also, everyone talks about his volume and his cardio. His cardio is world class. Like he does not get tired. He continually marches forward. He will always win the later rounds. He just goes forward with his little. Everyone will talk about his little flinchy. I don't even know. He just stays very safe. His shell. He just goes in straight for you. His little Philly shell or whatever you call it. And he's very good at it. And he's at 4-inch reach advantage in this matchup. phenomenal jab on him. Very, very, very good jab. One of the few people that use a jab well. And you know what? Paulo Costa struggles with people that have a good jab. We saw Robert Whitaker destroy Paulo Costa with a jab. So you would think it's Strickland all day. Here's the thing. Everyone's saying Paulo Costa, it's 5 rounds. He's going to gas out. He's going to get out volumed and ultimately finished or easily decisioned. He's not. I don't think. I mean, he could get he could get outstruck, but I think people are sleeping on Paulo Costa's cardio. Don't hear me out. He definitely gets tired. He definitely slows down in his fights, but he's one of these guys that continue fighting even death gassed. And people that say that Sean Strickland's just going to go out there and out volume him, not going to happen. Sean Strickland averages 5.91 significant strikes per fight. Paulo Costa averages 6.2 significant strikes per fight. He averages more strikes. And if you're saying, well, that's just skewed because he probably landed a few before a knockout, not true. His last fight, he lost against Robert Whitaker. Not a great showing. Definitely got outpointed. Only landed 67 strikes. Not the greatest look, okay? But the fight before that, against Luke Rockhold, 73 in 3 rounds. That's not bad. That's a pretty decent number. The fight before that, the only other 5 round fight we saw him in, Marvin Vettori, he landed 163 strikes. That's a shit ton. The dude throws volume. So we're looking at 70. He's averaging 70 in 3 round fights, 163 in a 5 round fight. We saw him fight Yoel Romero in a 3 round fight. 3 round fight. 118 strikes landed. 118 in 3 rounds. The dude has volume. Uriah Hall, 75 strikes were landed, and the fight ended in halfway through round 2. The dude was on pace for 150 in a 3 round fight. The dude throws volume. Who's saying that Sean Strickland's going to go out there and out volume Paulo Costa? He may not. And honestly, Paulo may not have to outstrike him and outvolume him. He could knock him out. I know he hasn't got. You're going to hear it over and over again. Paulo hasn't had a knockout in 6 years. Yeah, that's true. He should have knocked out Chinny Luke Rockhold. He really should have. He should have knocked out Robert Whitaker. Well, you know what? Robert Whitaker is a former champion and honestly probably the best or second best middleweight on the planet. It's fine that he didn't. And you know what? He caught Robert Whitaker. If he had 10 more seconds in round 1, I love Bobby Knuckles. I locked Bobby Knuckles in that fight. Bobby Knuckles was on skates. He was out of there if there were 10 more seconds in that first round. In addition, Luke Rockhold, that fight was at elevation. He slowed down a ton in that fight. Yes, Luke Rockhold's old and chinny and gassed out. Paulo was gassed out in elevation too. And let's not act like Paulo doesn't have a million fights canceled. It's going to be 6 years since you knocked someone out if they only fight once every 2 years. Like, it's not like he had 10 fights in that time frame. His last knockout, yes, was 6 years ago. Since then, he's had 1, 2, 3, 4. He's had 5 fights since. And he lost 3 of them. Of course, he didn't get the knockout. He lost them. And one of them, he beat Luke Rockhold by decision. And Yoel Romero, who's basically impossible to finish, wasn't able to knock out Yoel Romero in a win. So what? He lost 3 fights and we're getting penalized for not getting the knockout. He lost to Izzy. He lost to Marvin. He lost to Robert. Those are good fighters. He didn't knock them out because he lost the fucking fight. And then the 2 wins that he did get in that time frame, Luke Rockhold, he should have knocked out, but again, elevation and he was gassed. And then Yoel Romero, who's never been knocked out. So what are we talking about here? Can Paulo knock out Sean Strickland? Yeah, Sean Strickland's chin's not great. It's not that good. And someone that spars over and over and over every day, multiple times a day, he has so much wear and tear that we don't see inside of the octagon. The dude is due. They said it at the Dogger Pass podcast. I agree 110%. All that sparring is going to catch up to him. I don't think Paulo's the hardest hitter in the world. He looks the part. He does have some power. It's not as you would think looking at him, but it's not like he doesn't have power. He can knock you out, and he can outvolume you. 6.2 significant strikes. He's getting hit with 6.38, so he's getting hit more. He's extremely hittable. But his jiu-jitsu's okay, but he's not going to wrestle, and neither is Sean. This is going to be a stand-up fight against 2 dudes that throw a ton of volume. One of them hit hard, one of them do not. One of them has great cardio and is definitely winning round 5. Sean Strickland's also a slow starter. So I'm giving Paulo round 1. I'm giving Sean Strickland round 5. What happens 2 through 4? Paulo has to win 2 of those. That's all he has to do to win the fight. 2 of those rounds. I think he can do it. Some judges gave him round 1 against Robert Whitaker for that one moment. All it takes is one moment against a chinny fighter. I think this line is too wide. I think Paulo's live at plus 200. I do. The pick is going to be Paulo Costa. The bet's going to be Paulo Costa. I think he shocks the world. And that takes us to the main event. If you haven't already, what the fuck are you doing? Give this video a like, hit subscribe, give a follower on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, wherever there's social media. There is a Stats and Stacks podcast. We have the champ, Islam Makhachev, at minus 675, going up against Dustin the Diamond Poirier at plus 490, over 2.5 at plus 125, under 2.5 at minus 160. Let's just start with Islam. Islam should kill him. Islam is very good, very, very, very good wrestling. He's only 32 years old, so he's in his prime. Good jujitsu, good striking. It's a little lower volume. Not a fan of that. It's a little redundant on the feet. Honestly, he has a jab and he has a hook, and that's about it. I guess he head kicked Volkanovski to death. That was new. But outside of the random head kick he landed on Volk, just a lot of hooks and jabs. That's really all he throws. Um, his cardio's okay. He slows down a little bit. We saw him slow down in the first Volk fight. We saw him slow down in the Thiago Moises fight. We've seen him slow down in fights before. But his jujitsu's okay. Or sorry, his cardio's okay. His jujitsu's good. People are gonna say he's chinny. Yeah, he got caught. Adriano Martins, that punch would have knocked out anybody. Like he got absolutely cracked. It happens. He's only lost one time in his entire career. He also got rocked against Volkanovski, and Volk's not a power puncher, so that's not good. So I started thinking, is he chinny? Like, is he actually chinny? Are people over exaggerating, or is he actually chinny? And he's a great wrestler. He's not getting hit a lot. Charles didn't really hit him that much. Bobby Green didn't hit him at all. Dan Hooker didn't hit him at all. Thiago Moises didn't hit him at all. Drew Dober didn't hit him at all. Davi Ramos hit him a little bit, but he's predominantly a jiu-jitsu guy. Armin Sarukian has zero power and really didn't hit him that much, but had him in some trouble at times. So yeah, he's not really getting hit. So you can't tell me he's chinny off of getting cracked one time. But that's the only time we saw him crack. So I don't know if he's chinny. The thing is, in this fight, and the reason he's minus 675 is because he shouldn't get hit and all in this fight either. Dustin Poirier is 35 years old. He's towards the very end of his career, already talking retirement, and has 63% takedown defense. If you want Dustin Poirier on the ground, you get Dustin Poirier on the ground. Very bad takedown defense at ATT, which is good. What they do is they increase your cardio as well. Very good cardio, definitely a cardio advantage. Has a 3-inch reach advantage, which is super nice. Very good striking, probably the best boxer at lightweight. So definitely the better striker here. Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt. I will say the Jiu Jitsu is a wash. Carries a ton of power, has a ton of volume. If this fight is standing, Dustin kills Islam, but he has 60% takedown defense going against Islam, a Russian grappler. Like, this is not good. Crowd will definitely be behind Dustin. I understand everyone talks about him jumping Gilly. For the love of God, don't do that. Can he clip Islam? Absolutely. Dustin Poirier can knock out anyone in the weight class. However, I did notice a little trend with Islam's title run. He beat Charles Oliveira, who used to fight at 145. He beat Volkanovski, who is currently at 145. He beat Volkanovski on short notice, who is currently at 145. And now he's fighting Dustin Poirier, who used to fight at 145. Islam, his whole game is being a size bully. He's fighting all these featherweights. He's only fought featherweights for titles. That's it. Or people that have fought at featherweight. It's no different here. Dustin used to make 145. Islam's going to be the much larger man. Dustin has the reach, but Islam's going to be a thick, thick boy, and that's a strong, strong boy that's coming to take you down. So Dustin's going to have to catch him, or Dustin's going to have to stay safe as Islam comes out hot and then take over late. Can Dustin do it? Yeah, I think Dustin can guillotine. I think he can submit anyone in the world. I think he can knock out anyone in the world. I do like that Dustin fought Habib and is already familiar with this style, has already felt this style at an even bigger front. So that does leave advantage Dustin. But Habib also beat Dustin and knows what to tell Islam. Is his main trainer. Like he knows what Dustin's gonna do. So let's be real. Islam's minus 675 for a reason. He should win this fight. How am I betting it? Not him at minus. I'm not. I'm never gonna bet minus 675. That's too juiced. I don't even lock fights that are over minus 300. Like I refuse. I feel like there's no skill if it's over minus 300. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna pick Islam and one for the culture. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put money on plus 500 Dustin Poirier. You don't need to chase the submission. You don't have to chase the round. You don't have to chase the knockout. Just put money on Dustin at plus 500. Fingers crossed you have one hell of an end to the evening. And that is UFC 302, Makhachev versus Poirier. It's not the greatest pay per view in the world, I'm going to be honest with you. But as long as we're making money, we're making memories, baby. Let's get it.